Okay, good evening. Hold on 1 minute. Let's just start with a little tune to bring us in. Here we go.
Yeah. Big up our massive crew. As in the end, love is all.
I have a song. Good evening. Good evening.
Evening, afternoon.
Good evening.
Okay, well, this is track that I've just been playing there, yeah? That track is I Have a Song. It's by Nubian Jack and featuring Eric Robertson and the Greenwich NHS Choir. And it's a tribute to the nurses and midwives who served in the UK, came over here on the Windrush to help out. And Nubian Jack had produced a statue that was due to be erected on the 5th of July. It has been put back now, but I'm sure we'll hear more about that when it happens. So, but that's the track, very nice track, and really does tell about the stories that really need to be told that haven't yet been told. And we're going to be hearing a lot more today in relation to the Windrush. This is the Windrush Day Show in connection with T.A.P project and Windrush, WD Legal and SE UK. I'll be co-hosting this evening with Otis from T.A.P, down directors of T.A.P. At the moment, we also have from WD Legal, Lorna Downer, Anthony Brown and Leonie Brown, and they're going to be sharing some of the work that they've been doing with regard to the Windrush over the past few years. Also, hopefully, we are going to be linking with a couple of the Windrush. I don't even know if victims is the right word to use, or survivors, yeah, because they're still here, they're still fighting. So hopefully we're going to get to speak to a couple of them and get them to share some of their experiences of what they've been going through, or what they've gone through, or what they may even be still going through. We are on YouTube and we are on Facebook. On Facebook, we are on the T.A.P project Facebook page, and SE UK Global on YouTube. So you can send any questions and comments there for whether it's the survivors who join us this evening, or WD Legal guests that we have on. So first of all, let me just greet first of all Otis as a co-host. So Otis, how you doing, man?
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Anthony. I'm not too bad. Just here, trying to do what we need to do, spread awareness, and hopefully people can get what they deserve. There's a lot of people being mistreated, so we need to be more vocal, and people need to know what's going on.
Definitely. And also, just can we say good evening first of all to, let's start with the ladies, eh? So Leonie, good evening.
Hi, Anthony. Yes, good evening. Thank you for having me. Yes, it's like Otis said, we need to keep the issues and of Windrush alive and not swept under the carpet. We need to keep talking about it. We need to build the awareness. We need to let people know the truth about what's going on. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to talk Windrush today.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And Lorna?
Good
Good evening.
afternoon. And like Naomi said, yeah, just we're here doing what we can to support those that have been affected by the Windrush to call it scandal. It's more than a scandal. So we're here working together, looking for volunteers to support us so that we can support those that have been affected. Yes, thank you. And good afternoon. I know you keep saying good evening, but it's not the evening.
I know.
You used to be in the
Good
evening.
evening, Anthony. I think you're muted. All right, I can't. You're muted, Anthony.
Yeah. Good evening. Good afternoon, Anthony. Thank you for having us. And yes, we do need to know what the scandalous, unlawful Home Office behaviour has done to our communities, to the Windrush generation and their descendants. And we hope that we'll be able to share some remedies this afternoon and what we can do as a community to defend ourselves against this hostile environment.
Brilliant, thank you. And we have been joined by Patricia. Hello, Patricia.
Hi, how are you? Good day.
I'm great, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. My name's Anthony, and here also, I mean, I think you probably know Anthony, Lorna, and Leonie. But I'm
Yes,
Anthony,
I do.
and I've also got Otis on this evening. That's a co-host with me.
Hi, good day.
So, like I said, thank you very much for joining us. And I think I'll start by saying I don't fully know your full experiences of what you've had to deal with, but I'm going to just say sorry that you've had to deal with what you have had to go through.
And still dealing
with. Yeah. So first of all, Patricia, when did you first find out that you were actually in a position where you were caught up in this hostile environment?
Well, I came to this country when I was 5 years old, and my dad got ill. So after 11 years, he took us all back to the Caribbean, and I've been visiting backward and forward, but I didn't, growing up as a teenager, I didn't know much about it. It's only when I came back in 2013 and I applied to the Home Office, first of all, for asylum, with all, expectations, because I told the truth. And then a year later, I got a refusal letter. I was given the opportunity to appeal. I did appeal and they turned it down. And then I sent in I sought permission to the higher tier to do another appeal, and they refused me. And they kept saying, okay, it's time for you to go back home. You're affecting our resources and this and that, but because my youngest daughter was still under 18, we still had accommodation and we were still getting support from Circle. But my daughter turned 18 the Friday, and the Monday the letter was in the post where they took away everything and we were rendered homeless.
Wow.
And we were still told we can't work, leave, if not we'll be forcibly moved, And our situation was such that we couldn't go back home, still can't go back home. And eventually we did further submissions, and it took 3 years before they refused that as well. But during that time is when I applied under the Windrush, simply because I have 3 siblings that were born here. My mom and my dad came to this country in 1958. And he was here for 14 years. My mom, she was a nurse. They all paid taxes and all of that. And yet for all they're telling me I have no right of abode.
Goodness.
I said, sorry?
No, carry on, sir.
Yeah, we sent in, we asked them to review it with the help of Anthony and his team. Leonie was very significant in that help. And still, they said no. So I'm in this position where my daughters wanted to go to university because my youngest daughter, she did her A-levels. She got 2 A's and a B, sociology, psychology, and English. And it's been a while now and nothing. So we are here without status, without even a passport, because the Home Office has our passports and they're expired anyway. My ID card for Trinidad is expired. Everything is expired. I have an account in Trinidad, a bank account. So I had my Trinidad Links card. Somebody cloned the card here in this country and stole all my money. So I had to block the card. So there's no way for me to even get, because my husband died. So I was getting at least survivor's benefit has been going into my account in Trinidad, but I can't even access it.
Wow.
And we went from pillar to post, not having it. Somebody will take us in for 2 weeks and then there's an excuse and somebody else will take us in. And then they said the council was reporting them for taking people in. And we've slept on the floor. We've sat on chairs to sleep through the night. And it's really been horrible. It's been very depressing. And, especially to see my 2 daughters with such potential and they can't move forward in education. I can't work. So we're totally dependent on if somebody will hand us a bread, and that has not been my life, because I was in a position in Trinidad where I worked. I had a very good job, a good position. My salary was good. Even after my husband died, I was able to maintain my family. But we had to run and leave it because of the attack and the threat of death. And the thing is, since we're here,
just being patient.
Sorry?
Point. That we lost you a bit there, Patricia. You were just saying that you was in a decent position. You had a good job. Things were okay for you.
Yes, and I had to leave everything. I was getting close to retiring, but I had to leave everything and take my children out of the country and run for our lives. And the Home Office, they virtually said they don't believe, or 1 minute they said, well, we don't need outside protection. We can be protected in our country, although I explained to them that the police are in the hands of the drug lords,
When you're having to deal with the Home Office on this, Patricia, are they actually talking to you, or is this all via email and
letters, all by letters?
So there's nobody you could even talk to face to face. They're not.
No. I tried to find out who our caseworker was, and nothing. We did the further submissions. Mine was refused after I applied under the Windrush, but my son, they have not replied to him. And since then, he sent in more, because when he applied to the Home Office, because of his age, he had to do a separate application. And when he did it, he also mentioned that his 2 cousins, which are my 2 nephews, the gangs had attacked them. They had broken one of my nephew's jaw. They had kidnapped one of them, and hit him in his head with a gun, but eventually they let him go. But since then, last year, one of them, the one whose jaw was broken, they killed him. And this has been the fear, because that threat has been over my son. And they said that they're going to come after. That's what they do. They come after the whole family. And that is why we have feared for our life. And that's why we have not been back.
Wow. And in relation to when you say about the appeals and some of the other things, are these things that you have to also pay for?
No, under when we first applied, we I don't think they offer it now, but we were offered legal aid. So all of those applications we didn't have to pay for. And the immigration is IAS. The immigration, they were at the time working for us, you know. They were building our case and everything, but it was of no avail because we were still refused. And they pulled out after we were refused. They pulled out. They said they can't go any further with us. No, they went up to the first appeal, and then they pulled out as well. And they said if we need any further help, it will cost at that time £1,000. Where am I getting £1,000? And I wasn't even working.
Wow. I mean, what usually happens in a lot of, not Windrush cases, but when people are brought to courts and have to deal with legal things, even when they're just a lay person and having to go through all of this, they tend to start learning a lot of the laws and issues and wordings and things that you have to use to get by. So I'm sure you having to read all those letters and emails and go through that. You've seen why and understand now why, like what Anthony is involved in, why this judicial review is necessary, and possibly for you can see clearly where the government and the Home Office are going wrong. So so with that, Patricia, what should your position be, and what should they be doing to change this situation that's happening for you and others?
I am hoping that because there are certain laws, as I've learned, that they have in place that prevents us from going forward or prevents me from receiving, you know, my stay under the Windrush. Because the reality is I came here in 1961. And I was out of the country. When I left in 1972, I was out of the country more than 2 years. But then they had interjected a clause giving permission for those who were out of the country more than 2 years to be able to get it. But they keep saying because I think my dad didn't take citizenship or something like that. I'm not sure exactly, but we don't have right of abode. And what I would like, under my own merit, you know, the fact that I was here before they put in all those laws. I was born. When I was born, we weren't an independent country. I understand that they said, well, you know, your status, your country status change, you know, but when I was born a British citizen or under the colonies of Britain, you know, and I'm asking them, please open the door so that my family and I could live. Thank God we are alive because we are here. If we were in Trinidad, it would have been different.
Yes. Yeah.
It would have been different. And I mean, I came, I volunteered, and not because, I'm doing it to show them. This is my heart. So, you know, I was visiting 5 different people per week. I signed up. I signed up with the Royal Voluntary Service, and, you know, I was volunteering, and, you know, and in the church where we are here in Bristol now, my daughter, she volunteers a lot with the admin. And whatever we can do, we do. I believe that we have a lot to offer, but, you know, I don't know. I've been praying and just asking that somewhere someone could help us. We've got nothing to go back home to. All my family, my husband died, his family, his sisters and them have died. They're those that have left the country. My sister, my mom, they're in the US now, everybody. So there's nothing to really go back to. And after 8 years, because next month will make it 8 years, I mean, even the job, because of the COVID, a lot of companies are closed. The job I was in, if even I had a chance to go back, they have retrenched. They've offered severance to all the supervisors and all, you know. So there is nothing. People are losing. People have lost jobs, and you know, things are very hard. And then they have Venezuela, all the Venezuelans flooding into the country, you know. So it is in a serious state.
Yeah.
It is in a serious state.
But like
you
you
know.
say, but even with all of that, and you're talking about you not being able to go back, the fact is that you shouldn't have to have that in mind, because, like you said, you was a
I
British
don't have it.
citizen.
Actually, I don't have it in mind. I consider here to be home. You
Yeah.
know, my son, I have 2 grandchildren now, a boy and a girl. I have my 2 sisters and my brother, my niece, my nephews. Everybody's here. My brother, he's in another part, not far from Bristol, you know, so my family are here.
Wow. Okay, Patricia, I'm just going to just allow some of the others, Otis and the others, to, if they have any other questions for you, because especially with the WD legal guys having a deeper understanding of this area, they may have a question that may bring a wider support and help for some others that they know that you could help with.
Okay.
So have you guys got any other questions for Patricia? That would Otis.
I don't really.
Yeah.
Can I speak? Yeah.
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 I don't have a question particular for Patricia, but what I wanted to say, because I was like Patricia said, I helped to do her case, so I was a part of the team that represented her in the Windrush case, not the asylum case, the Windrush case. And just so you get an understanding of Patricia's, she lived here for 11 years, and she was taken back, not because her dad was ill and she needed to. She was the eldest of all of her siblings, so she. Right. Okay. Right. So yeah. So she returned back to Trinidad, not because of any decision of her own, but because her
No.
parents did that. When she was old enough to, at the time when she was leaving, how old were you again, Patricia?
When I was leaving
Yeah.
London, I was
Yes.
16.
16. So she couldn't stay on her route. And she was like the oldest of her brothers and sisters. So when she was old enough to return, and a parent could keep coming back, but 2 years after she left the country, and she was longing to come back, all of her friends, everyone that she knew was here. She's formative years that she spent here, that was her life. They brought her back 2 years, but the mistake was made then. That's when the error was made with the Home Office. Instead of allow them to come back, they had to apply for visas to come back.
Yeah.
And they had right of abode then, you see. But because they didn't know the immigration law and the rule,
Yeah.
they were told that they supposed to apply for visa, and that's what they did. And that put them back, reset them back into a position of visitors. So when Patricia was old enough to come back, when the parents decided that they can go back, all of them, her and her siblings can go back, and her mum would look after her dad. Was it after her dad died? Her brothers and sisters, her 2 sisters and a brother, they were able to come back, but Patricia was prevented from coming back because her siblings were born here, you see. And Patricia was born back in Trinidad. So her siblings came back and she stayed. So throughout the whole period of time, under the Windrush, when they're assessing you to see whether you've got right up aboard and all that, they use the term whether you maintain ties in the UK, but she always maintained ties in the UK because her siblings came back in '85, and she was always in touch with them and maintaining ties. So it was very, very unfortunate. The way how Patricia was treated in this case is very, very unfair, and we will continue to fight for her to stay in this country because she should be allowed to stay here under the Windrush scheme. We were very disappointed when they turned around and turned down her case, and we will continue
Yeah.
to fight for her.
And in the sense of what I don't know. I'm echoing. Maybe if you mute, I don't know. But in the sense of what Patricia was saying about the support and having to deal with these letters and emails and things like that, how kind of, you know, okay, somebody like yourself, an accountant, solicitor, you know, probably has an understanding of those kind of paperwork and who to get through. But the fact that she's had no key person, key worker at the Home Office to speak to face to face. Is this a regular thing that you come
This
up
is a
with?
regular thing. This is normal. You don't have a direct contact with them. It's all through letters, and the letters are very harsh. The language that they use and the threats that they use is very, very harsh. I mean, I've been through it myself when I came into the country back in 1992, and have my job. I've been through the immigration system. Most of us that you see that comes into, came into the country and stay, have been through the stringent, rough, hostile immigration system and enforcement law that they've got. So yeah, it's really, really hard.
Okay, thanks for that. I mean, I don't know. Do you want to add anything else more to that, Patricia? What Leonie was saying? Did anything come out?
No, but she is correct, because when my sister, one of my sisters who was born here, she went to an immigration lawyer to see if she could have even filed for me, or, to get some sort of clarity. They said, one, that I was out of the country too long. And then the lawyer told her it's going to cost too much. It's going to cost her a lot of money if she wants to go down that route. And he was, he wasn't really willing to help,
Wow.
So, I don't know. I would really, I'm looking, because there's this group in Bristol, the Malcolm X Center. They have a team, and they put me onto Legal Angels, Windrush Legal Angels in London. And they took up my case and said they would help. But then the lady who was supposed to help me, her mom died suddenly, and then I didn't hear from them for a while. And then somebody else contacted me, a young man, and said that they would, look into it some more and see how they could help. But I've not heard anything more, because I was even thinking of giving them a call. But it is so frustrating. I have to keep my spirits up for the sake of my children. I mean, I have my moments up when I'm by myself, and I'm looking at them. Everybody is going to university, and they are there just, looking on, and I would really like to be able I'd like us to move forward. I'm getting older. I have no pension to get in this country. I'll be 66 in December. I have nothing to get, and I have no pension to get at home, even if I had to go back to Trinidad, because they've put in a law now that you have to be back in the country 7 to 10 years before you can apply for pension. So I'm really in a precarious position where, so I don't know. I really need some intervention.
It seems just 1 minute, Anthony, because you might be able to answer this next one. It seems just so wrong, Patricia, that what you're going through, but also that so many other people are going through similar things that you are, and it's been going on for so long, yet still you've not got a definite place to go and say, all right, then this is somewhere where I can go. They're fully aware of all the issues that's been going on with the Windrush, and they're going to be my support, and I know I can count on them throughout. Now, I don't know if what Anthony's going to say is, he might say, right, we're here, WD Legal, we're by your side, and we're going to be by your side until it gets to that point where, you know, you're no longer feeling all those emotional things, and you where you want to be and need to be. But it's very, very sad to hear that you're still having to go to this person and then not get back to you, and that person and not get back to you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because I know there was a time where there was money available for certain solicitors, and maybe they were doing their work based on what they were getting and not based on their heart in a sense, in understanding that with this, it's not, you can't do and support just because you're getting the money. Maybe you can add to that, Anthony.
Yeah, I'll deal with that, but I just have a question, and I want his to come in first because mine is going to be a bit of a long answer.
Okay. So go on. What was that? What did you say before?
Otis, what was your question?
My question. I didn't have a question.
Oh, right. I thought you had a question before for Patricia.
Oh no, Anthony asked me if I had anything, but there's nothing really much to elaborate on. It's just a story.
Okay, thanks. So in terms of the support, then, Anthony, Patricia is the case, I must say, that has motivated me to apply for the judicial review, if I'm honest, because I just felt, you know, what I describe as a righteous outrage after going through with Patricia, you know, what we went through when we were putting in her application. So this with Patricia has been going on for 3 years with WD Legal, because Patricia was one of the first people who we met when those meetings were being held in Moss Side. And there were solicitors there that were telling us that, you know, I was outside the rules, Patricia was outside the rules, and we just thought, well, how can this be? Because, you know, we've lived in the country, we are entitled to these rights. We had a statement from Amber Rudd, and I should read that statement because it will help you to understand what it is that we're applying for with the judicial review, and why it is Patricia and I feel so aggrieved as to how we and other people from the Windrush generation, because we were children when we came here, we came on our parents' passport.
Yeah.
But you know, let me read Amber Rudd's statement. So Amber Rudd, who was the Home Secretary at the time when the Windrush Scandal broke in 2018, in April 2018, she came to Parliament on the 23rd of April, and she said, from the late 40s to the early 70s, many people came to this country from around the Commonwealth to make their lives here and to help rebuild Britain after the war. All members will have seen the recent heartbreaking stories of individuals who have been in the country for decades struggling to navigate an immigration system in a way that they should never, ever have had to do. These people worked here for decades. In many cases, they helped to establish the National Health Service, they paid their taxes and enriched our culture. They are, and this is a key phrase, they are British in all but legal status. And this should never have happened and have been allowed to happen. Both the Prime Minister and I have apologized to those affected, and I am personally committed to resolving this situation with urgency and purpose. Of course, an apology is just the first step. We need to take to put right the wrong these people have suffered. But before I get on to the steps that we will be taking, I want to explain how this situation has arisen. The Immigration Act 1971 provided that those here before it came into force should be treated as having been given indefinite leave to enter or remain in the UK, as well as retaining a right of abode for certain Commonwealth citizens. Although the Empire Windrush docked in the port of Tilbury in 1948, it is therefore everyone that arrived in the UK before 1973 who was given settlement rights and not required to get any specific documentation to prove those rights. Since 1973, many of the Windrush generation would have obtained documentation confirming their status or would have applied for citizenship and then a British passport. From the 80s, successive governments have introduced measures to combat illegal immigration. The first NHS treatment charges for overseas visitors and illegal migrants were introduced in 1982. Checks by the employers on someone's right to work here were first introduced in 1997. Measures to access to benefits in 1999 and civil penalties for employing illegal migrants in 2008. And the most recent measures in the Immigration Acts 2014 and 2016 introduced checks by landlords before property is rented and checks banks and account holders. The public expects us to enforce the immigration rules approved by Parliament as a matter of fairness to those who abide by the rules. And I am personally committed to tackling illegal migration because I have seen in this job the terrible impact it has on some of the most vulnerable in our society. But steps intended to combat illegal migration have had an unintended and sometimes devastating impact on people from the Windrush generation who are legally but who have struggled to get the documentation to prove their status. This is a failure of successive governments to ensure these individuals have the documentation. So for me then, Amber Rudd is saying, accepting responsibility that it's the government that should have provided people with documents, but they haven't. But the situation is that they say that they've put in place a Windrush scheme that will allow people to regain this status. But the problem is, first of all, they didn't offer any support for that. So when we heard the news in 2018 that the government was putting in place this Windrush scheme, we as Windrush defenders took the initiative that we were going to support people because we felt that this was a typical action of the government to say they're going to do things, but not put in the resources to give people the support to access what, you know, the facility that they've put in place. So this is how the Windrush defenders got together. We started the surgeries to help people with the documentation and then help people with compensation. At the time, you know, it was said that legal aid should be provided so that people who needed help could get a lawyer or an immigration advisor or someone to stand by them throughout the case, deal with the Home Office and so on. But that was never put in place. And so what we did as volunteers, we just got together. I got various law students and we got the, you know, solicitors to volunteer, and we sort of overworked the solicitors, if I'm honest, because we booked in lots and lots of appointments and just sort of worked them as much as we could, because, you know, if they had to go and have lunch, that was 2 people that could have been seen. That's the way we felt it, but, you know, they were quite exhausted after the time. But anyway, we tried to help as many people as possible, and we've been still doing that. One of the issues with regards to the Windrush scandal is that they said that they would reduce the amount of documentation that people would have to provide to prove their status. But in Patricia's case, because she was already here, and they weren't actually looking for proof that, you know, she'd lived here. They wanted to find proof that she had close ties. So the amount of documentation that you then have to get for that. You know, letters from her family, letters from her pastor, letters from this organization, and so on and so forth. It just mounts up, and it's a ton load of work. But you know, the law is still in place that if you're making the application, then it's up to you to provide the evidence that that you have that status. So although Amber Rudd is apologizing and saying that you know, these people are British in all but legal status, when it comes down to it, the bureaucracy that is there is stopping people, and the laws that are there is stopping people. Because how can you say to people that you're British, you know, but legal status, and then put in a scheme which in effect is a naturalization scheme? So the Windrush scheme, when you apply to it, it's really using a section of the law, Section 6 of the British Nationality Act 1981, which is about foreigners naturalizing or becoming British. Patricia isn't a foreigner. She was born a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies. Amber Rudd said she's British in all but legal status. Now, previously, up until the 1st of January 1988, there was a registration scheme in place. So Patricia mentioned her dad could have registered. She could have been registered as a British citizen, and then that would have solved that. In my own case, I could have registered in 1983, but when I wrote to the Home Office to ask about my status, they threatened me with deportation. So although the law is there, the Home Office acts in an unlawful way and has been deporting people, has been refusing people re-entry to the country, has been putting people in detention, all illegally. And they've held their hands up and they say they're sorry. But they're continuing the abuse with Patricia because they won't change the law to bring back the registration scheme, which would put Patricia in the position she would have had at the time had they been obeying the law. So we've got an abuser dealing with the abused, and you know, we're asking the abuser to use their discretion to sort out the abused. Now, I've never heard of that in any area of law, but we expect in this situation the abuse of the Home Office to sort out people who they've abused. It won't work, and this is why we've applied to the judge, to the High Court, to say, could you declare that the Windrush scheme is not fit for purpose? You said we were British in all but legal status. This is saying that we were foreigners and we need to naturalize. That's irrational. With the compensation scheme, Tricia doesn't even get to pass go and collect her £200. And there are thousands like Patricia. So the Home Office, or the Home Secretary, has reported to Parliament in a statement to the Home Affairs Select Committee that they've refused 2,414 people inside the UK, and one of them is Patricia. And they have refused 11,715 people from abroad, and we know many of them because we are called by people from abroad. So what I'm saying is that our judicial review, we aim to have a judge declare that it's not fit for purpose and that it's unlawful. We're also looking at the way the laws were framed back in the 70s. We're saying that because they put in at Section 2 of the Immigration Act 1971 that you needed to have a father born in the UK in order to automatically qualify for citizenship, that in itself is discriminatory. It's like saying, in order to be a radio presenter, you have to be 6 feet tall. Now, you might get the job, Anthony, but not many women might be 6 feet tall. Why have a rule that you have to be 6 feet tall? The rule is irrational. It doesn't.
Then there's the other thing as well, Anthony, and in regard to them putting the burden of proof on the person, especially when the person, for the most part, and I don't know how common it is, has worked here in the UK. So they've been paying taxes, they've been paying bills. So, and the Home Office would have access to this information via MRC and things like that. So why is that not proof enough for a lot of these so-called Windrush generation?
Well, in recent cases, the Home Office has changed its policy, and it's been using information that they can access through HMRC, or the NHS to prove that people have been in the country. But in Patricia's case, as I've said before, it's not about proving whether she's been in the country. It's whether or not the current rules that they have allow her to benefit from the promise that was made in Parliament. So the current rules say that you need to naturalize. Well, she can't, because she's already British. So why are you trying to naturalize somebody who you're already British? That's irrational. The current rules say that you need to have been in the country. You can't have been out of the country for more than 2 years to change your residency status. Well, that rule is usually applied to foreigners or people who have indefinite leave to remain. It's not applied to people who are British, but that is what they're doing. So it's irrational. So what we're saying is that the scheme that the Home Office is trying to use to right the wrongs is creating more wrongs. They need a registration scheme like what used to exist before the 1st of January 1988. Now, if they had properly informed people like myself, like Patricia, instead of acting illegally, then we would have registered. But they didn't. They told people that they didn't need to register. So what we're saying in our judicial review is you need to put people back into the position they would have been in had you not acted illegally. And you need to restore Section 7 of the British Nationality Act, which says that we can register. And that's what needs to happen. And then all this stuff about providing this document to say that you've got this level, this, relative, in the country. No British person, if they go abroad for 10 years, 30 years, come back, are asked to show if they've got, relatives living here. There's nothing of the sort. But that sort of nonsense is what they impose on us. And we're saying, no, we have to have equal status, and we need to have Section 7 being restored, and then we just simply need to register and cut out all the bureaucracy.
So just with regard to quickly, before we just get a few more words in Patricia, with regard to the judicial review, what's the kind of timescales and things on with regard to that? What's the steps of that, Anthony?
Well, how that began was that the Home Office set up the Windrush Stakeholders Advisory Group. So we had Martin Ford QC, who was commissioned by the Home Office to go around the country and find out from people what they thought, a compensation scheme should look like. And he came to Manchester, and we met with him, and we gave him, our ideas. We were working with people, and I'd had my own experiences. So we set out in a document what we thought the compensation scheme could look like, and we said that there ought to be a steering group or a body that oversaw it, because we know that you're not going to get everything right. When you start something, things are going to come up that you didn't think of, and so there needs to be a process in which we can reform the scheme as you go along. So we set that out. He then took that to the Home Office, and they took that on board, and they set up this advisory group. And then we were then invited to go to the Home Office and to give our views as to how the scheme was going. So a number of these problems that we were experiencing, the team would discuss them and say, right, okay, you need to go tell the Home Office this. So I then would go to these meetings, and then I'd come back to the team, and they said, have they decided to do what we've asked them? Are they going to, pay? One of the things that we were asking about as well is money to support the various organizations that were supporting people. And so I would have to come back and report that, no, they're not going to do it. Then I'd get it in the neck from the team, and then I'd go back again and try to talk to the Home Office, email them about what was going on. So I'd spend lots and lots of emails, and then what happened was Priti Patel came to one of these meetings. We put the questions to her about the laws that we wanted changed, and I'll read one of the sections to you as to what we had proposed, so you get an idea of what we were battling about. So we said that the following action should be taken. 1, all people who were born as either British subjects prior to 1948 or as citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies post 1948, and who had been settled in the UK for a period of 5 years by the 1st of January 1983, should, for the purposes of the Immigration Act 1971 and the British Nationality Act 1981, be treated as having continued to be citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies throughout this period, irrespective of the impact of any independence legislation passed in relation to their countries of origin. Now, it sounds like legal gobbledygook, but essentially all it's saying is that because Patricia has lived here for 10 years back in the 70s, then she should be allowed to have or be deemed to have that citizenship of the United Kingdom status. And then under Section 7, what that would say is that if you've got that status, then you could just register and be a British citizen. But Priti Patel said that it was complicated, and that if people would write to her with their ideas, that she would look at it. So asking me to write is the last thing you want to do. So we wrote to her a very detailed letter. We talked about all the other issues that was affecting the community that we thought had it been impacted by the immigration laws, like the damage done to community cohesion, criminal justice, health, work, and so on. And we sent that on Windrush Day 2020, and then she didn't reply until October 12th, and her reply, well, let's just say it left a lot to be desired.
Hold on, did you wait that long, or did you say, yeah, what's happening? Or did you just wait patiently from June to October?
We were in dialogue with the director of the Windrush scheme, so we knew that it was under consideration. They kept on apologizing for the delay, but they usually have to go around loads and loads of officials before they can come to a view. So anyway, eventually they did come to a view, but like I was saying, it left a lot to be desired. Effectively, they were saying that they were going to continue with the scheme, and in law,
you should say exactly what Priti Patel said, Anthony. She told you this, didn't she?
Pardon?
She told you where to
Well,
go.
I think she's saying that you're not telling the whole sheep
No,
are
no,
putting the front list.
I've got no plan for you. Leave me alone.
To be fair, she was very polite about it. But in effect,
She told me where to go in a very
she was
polite
telling me
way.
where to go with my ideas. But she said how good it was that we had, she had people supporting and how thankful she was for our contributions and all the rest of it. But we read and thinking, okay, well, what's your answer? What's your answer? So in the end, there wasn't much to it. But in fact, she was saying she was going to continue with the scheme because she was glad that 6,000 odd people had been given the documentation. So in law, ministers have to make decisions, and if you can show that a decision is irrational, then you can have a judge look at it. So we suspected that if you've been told that this is a naturalization scheme and you need a registration scheme, and you say you're going to continue with it, then that to me sounded like being irrational. So we got advice from a barrister, Grace Brown, and she said it was borderline, but we thought, well, we'll go anyway, because sometimes when you go into battle, your enemy makes a mistake and then it then goes in your favor. So it wasn't 100%, it wasn't definite, but we went in on that. We issued what's called a pre-action protocol notice. That was on the 23rd of December, so it was near Christmas Eve when they would have been packing up for a Christmas break, and this is when we decided to launch. And we contacted them and told them that we were going to be sending a pre-action protocol letter. They're a bit surprised. They said they felt threatened. We thought, we threatened? No, it's just part of the process. So we sent that in. That gave them 14 days to respond. And their first mistake was they didn't respond. So we thought, great. And so we then made the application. And I think on the day of the application, they sent a response. But it's too late. It was in. And so the wheels have been churning since then. So they had until the 6th of January. We submitted the application on the 15th. They responded on the 15th. And then we got some support then, because we'd been doing this as just volunteers. We had to do a whip round to get the money to pay the barristers, to do the grounds, and we just took it out of our own pockets because, as I was saying, this was just righteous outrage that they could act like this. And I may have gone around smiling with everybody, but inside I was seething. And as I was saying, I had Patricia at the back of my mind all the time because it's like family. It's like you've done it to they're doing it to your family. And as well as Patricia had lived in Wigan as well, so some of the times we'd had to meet in Wigan to sort of go through our applications and stuff, and so it was really a family thing. And but others that we've been dealing with, we saw that hundreds if not thousands could benefit from what we were doing. And so the Home Office then responded, and to our surprise, we had planned that if we got through to permission stage and they said no, then we would have to pay the Home Office's costs, which would have been about £2,000. But they brought out their biggest lawyer, their most powerful lawyer, the guy that defended the government when Gina Miller took them to court over proroguing Parliament. So Sir James EDQC, he was put on the case against us from the moment, from the start. Usually he just comes in on a case later on. So that told us that obviously we've alarmed somebody, and what that meant was that if we didn't get permission, the costs had just doubled because of his charges. He's seen as a more costly lawyer, but we've got his grounds for defence, and then then the prayer started.
Anthony, can you go back a bit to make sure that everyone understands? Because you're talking, you're going in depth about the judicial review, and I'm really keen to make sure that people even understand why a judicial review, what one is. You know, you're talking about the detail within the judicial review, but really why? In brief, why a judicial review and what is one? I'm not sure that that's. Can I ask Otis and Anthony Downer, do you understand what a judicial review is that Anthony is explaining right now, and why? From what we've said, from what's been said today.
Well, I have got a bit of an understanding of why they've gone down the route of a judicial review, but that might be because I have an understanding of what a judicial review is in other areas as well.
I'm not trying to be patronising, but I think it's really important that.
What is it that you think? What is it that you think has been missed? Because obviously,
no, I don't think anything's been missed. But I know that when you get used to doing this work, and when we're talking together, and because of the amount of events that we've done with members of the public, the questions that they've usually asked are questions around that we've listened to what you've said. And then at the end, they might say, I'm not really sure what a judicial review is. So I just want to make sure that...
So just to, okay then, let's take it away, because I know Anthony's a solicitor anyway. You're a lay person, but you've been around the information. But let's hear from your perspective of the judicial review.
I think because I'm a lay person, and Anthony and Leonie are both law graduates, but so I kind of say things from the point of view of, I don't know what you're talking about, and let's make sure everybody understands it from there. I think it's really important that the really important work that we're doing to support people to rectify their status, apply for compensation if they've been affected by Windrush. We did a launch in Liverpool last weekend, so that this type of service can be offered to people that live in Liverpool. And one of the questions was, after we'd been speaking for quite a while, what is a status? And I thought that was brilliant, because we'd been speaking for like nearly 2 hours. And then somebody asked, what's a status? And so that's why I always like to take it back to making sure that people understand why it's even important for them to understand what's happening with Windrush, because you can have a parent that was maybe born in a Caribbean country or a country that was the Commonwealth. It could be African country. It's not just about Caribbean. So it's important to note that if your parent didn't change their passport to a British passport, that's when we're talking about. And Anthony, Leonie, please jump in and help me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if your parent. Sometimes lots of our parents came with that black British passport, didn't they? So they already had a British passport. If your parent came from another country, maybe a country from the continent of Africa, or another country that was under British rule. So when we talk about the Commonwealth, we're talking about a country that was ruled over by Britain in its empire days, glory days, supposedly. And if your parent did not change their passport to a British passport, then you could possibly be affected. So you might not know. So what we found out in Liverpool is that the lady that asked what is a status, she said she doesn't think her mother or father changed their passport to a British one. And when she was explained what a status is, she then realised that she needed to go and find out if her parents did or didn't have a British passport, because she's got children that she realised then that if her parents haven't got a British passport, then possibly her children are affected. And so what we explained was that, well, Glenda from Preston Windrush explained that Sakina, who she started Preston Windrush with, found out that, anyway, she was booking a holiday. Sakina's younger than me. Sakina in her 30s, Anthony. And
Yes.
Sakina's got a child who wanted to go on holiday. I don't know if it was with school.
School trip.
Yeah, a school trip. And when Sakina went to book the passport for her daughter, who's in a 15 teenager, that's when Sakina was told that your daughter's not British and neither are you. And she's like, what are you talking about? I've lived here my whole life. What do you mean? So it's important for people to realise that it comes down the line from your parent or your father, really. Is it your father, Anthony? Now.
Yeah.
So if your father's not registered, you don't know. Some people were brought up in care. They don't know whether their parents have got a British citizenship.
Okay, so you're there, yeah, and the people are confused. They know that things are going wrong. So we've got the stage 2 judicial review. So I've come to you, yeah, as somebody, and I've said I've heard this word judicial review, and I'm saying to you as a linked to WD Legal. Anthony's not around solicitor. Leona's not around solicitor, and I'm saying to you, what's the judicial review? And why
Jesus, ask Anthony.
Okay, ask Anthony Leone. I can usually reply, but I feel like I've just frozen because I'm on.
Well, there's obviously something that you felt.
Anthony, can I just explain, and then we can deal with the other points that Lorna's making, because they're good points actually, which we should bring out. So for a judicial review, then, it's just challenging the exercise of power. So anytime a decision maker, whether it be a local authority, anybody in government, or an agent of the government, so it might be an agency that the government uses to do stuff, and every time they make a decision, you can challenge that power if you feel that they didn't necessarily have the discretion to use that power. So that's illegality. So they've used powers that they don't have, or it could be that the decision that they made was irrational. And what's the other one, Leonie? Help.
Administering of the scheme was poor.
Yeah.
Error. Yeah.
So basically,
so procedural unfairness, illegality, and irrationality. Those are the three main grounds that you can challenge.
This can be in any kind of area of business.
Yeah, any kind of decision that the government's made. Yeah. So the grounds that we have selected is irrationality. So you would have heard me talk about when Priti Patel made that decision, we thought it was irrational.
What decision was irrational? You need to break that down.
So, for example, when I said that you can't be British and a foreigner at the same time,
that makes sense.
It's not reasonable. It doesn't make sense, does it?
So what Anthony's saying there is because the Windrush scheme asks you to nationalise. You don't have to nationalise because you are already British. And the reason you were already British is because in 1948, when a lot of our parents and grandparents were not even living in this country, they might have been in the Caribbean or Africa or Kenya or wherever, you were already British because those countries were under the Commonwealth. And that's really important. That's the part where people were asking questions in Liverpool, saying that they didn't realise that.
Okay, that's partly true.
1 minute, Anthony. Can I just ask if
explain, Anthony?
Let me clear up that point with Lorna. Hang on.
Yeah, 1 minute, because I'm mindful that you did say that Patricia may not be able to be with us for the first part.
Yes, I'm getting ready to leave. Yeah.
Okay. So Patricia, just before you go, thank you again very much for joining us and sharing what you've gone through, and I hope that these guys are able to continue or support you moving forward, and hopefully this judicial review will go through and change absolutely everything for everybody. I don't know if you want to say anything before you do need to go, or any of the other guys have got anything to say to you before you do leave?
I want to say thank you to the team because they have been brilliant. I mean, I felt at one time like all hope was lost. Where do I go from here? What do I do? And then I was introduced to Leonie, and Leonie introduced me to Anthony, and then I met Lorna, and you all have been, played a very integral part of our lives and really gave us some hope. And I am praying. I've even asked my prayer group to pray for you all with the endeavor, so that not only I will be successful, but that others, because it's a horrible position to be in. You just have to keep your head down. You cannot move forward. You cannot, and so we are praying. We have been praying, and we continue to trust God that there will be 100% victory and success.
Thanks, Patricia. Patricia, just quickly, can I ask you this question? I don't know where it can lead and stuff, but given all your experiences that you've had dealing with this, and the people that you've contacted who were supposed to give you support and didn't give you support, or didn't call you back, or didn't answer your emails, or didn't respond to your letters, and I'm not asking you to big up WD Legal, but in the sense of you saying, what they've brought to you, what is the difference that they have come to you with than other organizations or people? Because there are a lot of organizations out there that are saying we're here to support you. So it'd be great to hear from you what WD Legal have done in the time that you've been with them that others should be doing or could be doing.
Yeah, what I experience with them is that they care, and it's not just a lot of legal mumbo jumbo, but they engaged, they actually engaged, and they were interested in the case. They found out as much as they could and gave support. Even for the Christmas, I got a little financial support, which was, oh my God, it was awesome. And from time to time, Anthony especially and Leonie, they contact me. They keep checking on me, at one time, because I've moved to Bristol now. I used to be in Manchester, but I moved to Bristol, and you tell yourself, well, okay, she's no longer in our jurisdiction, but that did not change anything for them. They have been reaching out to me, and I really, really appreciate, and I pray that others will take that on board, When it's easy to lose sight of people.
Oops.
Don't worry, she'll be back. She's back. She's a
Hello?
springer.
Yeah.
And there you go, Patricia. They said it's easy to lose sight of people.
Yeah, in the scheme of things, but they have not. They have, when Leonie messaged me one time or called me, and then Anthony said, we have not forgotten you. We think about you, and we're still trying. That was such a comfort to me, honestly. Honestly, it felt like being buffered up, that I have a platform under my feet, because I felt sometimes that my feet wasn't touching the ground, and, Windrush, they have the legal, that team, the defenders, they have really been there for my family, and I appreciate it. I really do.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Patricia.
And I met her once a meeting. Such a lovely person, and she has such a heart. It's not just talk. You feel like they really have a heart for the people. And I really pray for success. And I believe God that there is coming break. I believe God, and I stand on that. And that is what continues to give me hope. I pray for you all the time. I do.
All right, Patricia, thank you very much.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you for joining us, and you take care.
Okay, thank you very much.
Love to the girls.
Thank you.
Yes, I will. And may God bless you all. and give you the strength to continue to fight, and the clarity and the wisdom and inspiration and everything that you need.
Thank you. Thank you so
Wow.
much.
Thank you very much, Patricia. You take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't you get emotional, Lana? I'm watching you. Don't you dare get emotional. She's so emotional. She's such a cover up. I'm telling you, this is what we see every day, Tony. You know, this is. I'm telling. This is the I got involved with the Windrush from when the scandal broke in 2018, and I think it broke my heart when I started to hear people's stories and what they've been through, the silent sufferings, you know, that they've been going through. People have been suffering like in their home, and their children didn't know what they were going through. People
Wow.
have been like, you would have like a man's been going through certain things, and his woman doesn't know that he's got bearing that kind of, you know, and losing their jobs and stuff like that. So when I got involved, I would have had to be heartless to walk away from it. I've given up my time, as you know, Anthony.
Yeah.
We do this voluntarily. There's no funding for us to do this. We don't get paid to do it, and because we don't get paid to do it, we have jobs differently where we have to earn a living from. So the time that we put into this to do the work is our home time that we would spend with our family and spend on ourselves. So, what we choose to use that time, because for people like Patricia, when you hear how appreciative she is about for what we're doing, it's yeah, and we hear this every day. So we just keep going, and it's when people show so much appreciation, that's what keeps us going, really. You
Wow.
know, it's really touching to hear Patricia. Patricia is my
Yeah.
she's my case. I'm a caseworker.
Okay.
So it's really but what she doesn't realize, that even though I'm like the main person, well, she know that it's a team of us, that's you know, so yeah, it's just, yeah, it's
Well, it's
hard.
great to hear that, in the sense of, you know, where she started with and all the things that she'd gone through, and, you know, being made homeless. And I can't imagine, you know, what she's had to go through, or what her head's been like. So,
And that's a fraction of what she shared there. What she actually shared today is a fraction. I don't get too emotional. Patricia, we started to see in 2018, and we're still here. You know,
Yeah.
2021 now. Patricia and her girls have been through hell. Look at them all the way in Bristol now.
Yeah.
Been in Manchester. They've been on one side of Manchester. They've been in
Manchester for
places like
5 years.
Accrington, places that you've never heard of. They've been moved
Rochdale.
to, sleeping on the floor, you know, it's just really wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been really hard, because when you think of the, like in 1988, when the Nationality Act was coming in place, obviously the UK government invited people to register, for those who were living here for 5 years prior to the act, were you were deemed as British, and you were supposed to they invited you to come and register. Now, what we need to understand as well is that that registration was to give you a legal document, to prove your status. It's not your status. You've got the status. You are British. So the document is just to prove it. So you don't lose the status because you didn't get the document, do you? You know what I mean? So you are British, but you know. So when it fast forward into 2018, you know, well, 2014, when all that hostile environment policy, and that when people start to suffer and they weren't able to prove their legal status, that does not mean that they weren't British. It doesn't mean that they don't have the status. They just couldn't prove it. And that's what we need to understand. That's what we need people to understand. That so when this, and this is what Anthony's talking about. So when they're asking you now to naturalize to get it, it's wrong. It's irrational. It's illegal, because they've got the status. They just need the proof. So just register them, give them the proof to prove, because you know that they are British. So that's what they need. They just need the proof. But then you're taking them through stringent immigration rules and law of naturalization, which was set up for foreigners, for people who aren't British. So that's the understanding that we want people to get. So the 11,000 or how many thousand people that's been turned down.
Has anybody chose or to? I mean, you've got the right as a British citizen. You should be a British citizen. There's no way you should even have to be applying or registering for anything. But then you've got those who get naturalization, and then getting the naturalization, they have more or less they're here, and their children also can get naturalization based on that. So are they saying to
the children, see that they where it switches again. Because
Right.
when you as a parent get naturalized, your children don't get naturalized, they get registered.
Okay.
It's very, very complicated. I'm
So
telling
there's
you.
certain things in the line of naturalization.
Yes.
So each one brings different rights.
Yes. So there is you can register. You can get registered as a British citizen, but it's a different protocol. It's a different. It's a different lineage that is followed. It's a different criteria that is set out that you probably won't fit in. The Windrush people won't fit into that because it's specifically for children of that was born in the country for and it's different criteria that is set up. So there is still registration. My eldest daughter, I've got two daughters. One of them when she was born, because at the time when she was born, I had not got British citizenship in this country. I didn't have permanent resident in the country yet. I was still on visas. So when she was born, she had to take, because my husband wasn't British as well, she had to take my nationality because she was born in the 90s, so it's after 1988. So even though she was born here at St. Mary's Hospital, she became Jamaican, like me and her dad. So she wasn't British, so she got registered when she met the criteria later on. So, but my youngest daughter, at the time when she was born, I had settled status into the country, and she was born British. So I've got two daughters that were born here. One of them is British by birth. Both of them born here. One of them is British by birth. One of them is British by naturalization, by registration. Sorry, she had to go through that process.
Okay.
Now, the concern for me, Anthony, is that in the future, if we get a Home Secretary that says that you should be deported for because it will be conducive to the public good, and they would look at your status and say, right, because you are a citizen by naturalization, you have a parent who has another nationality, but therefore we can deport you. Now that's what they've done to people. Now, yeah. So we want a situation where our future generations are protected from that scenario. We don't know what's going to happen 10, 20 years from now, and what some Home Secretary, is going to say. Some right-wing Home Secretary is going to say in the future, or even Labour Home Secretary, because some of these crackpot legislations, been put in by Labour, and so we need to have something in law that protects future generations as well. So this is partly what the Windrush Act is about. We want to make sure that we lock it down this time, so that this sort of thing doesn't happen again, or if it does, then they have to go to Parliament to repeal, and then we will hear what's going on, and somebody will, take action to do what they can to block it. But these laws I think, have been put in place, and it seems that our parliamentary representatives have been asleep. They didn't, raise the alarm in the community to say, look, these laws are coming in, and this is what could happen. It's only when, the paper and Me the Gentleman starts writing stories that people go, oh, is that what's been going on? But the people in Parliament knew all along.
But that,
Well,
Anthony, you need
it was
to.
done with.
Anthony, can you make that clear that the members of the public, people need to be aware that the law needs to change, and it's not just us here. It's not just African and Caribbean people. It's white, Chinese, whatever culture you're from. The law needs to be changed. Otherwise, if we don't pass on this information and people don't fully understand it, and then we go into our graves and take this information with us, it can resurface and affect our children and grandchildren. It's really important. The law needs to be changed because the law is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any differences between your case, Anthony, and what Patrick Vernon's been petitioning for?
What has Patrick been petitioning for?
I'd have to get it up to read what it is, but I know he's got over 100,000 signatures for it. I think
Patrick wants to move check it though, Otis, if it's the same thing. But I think from what I remember, Patrick Vernon wants to move the Windrush scheme out of the Home Office. He's been talking about, how can the person that abused you, how can the abuser then decide how the abused should be treated for their betterment? So I don't know if it's the same thing that you're talking about, Otis, but
so I've got it up now. It says, we are calling on the government to improve the Windrush compensation scheme by doing 3 things. 1, make the compensation scheme process easier by considering independence and accessibility. 2, put a substantial amount of funding into the scheme to support grassroots and voluntary sector services that run outreach and support programs for survivors in the UK, Africa, and the Caribbean on legal assistance, advocacy, and emotional well-being. And 3, include a full apology letter with every single compensation letter. So far, it's 108,000 signatures.
Yeah.
How many?
108,000.
So the last 2, the government would say they're already doing. So, but we would say that how they're doing it, with the second one, is not really adequate.
Which one do you think they're already doing, Anthony?
No, I'm saying that the government would say, not I think that they're doing it. Government would say they're already doing it.
What are they saying they're already doing?
So they would say that they've put up £500,000 for grassroots organisations to have funding. But what we are saying is that that funding is just to raise awareness. It's not really to cover the core costs of organisations like ourselves who are actually at the coal face working with the clients.
And so that funding didn't exist.
They would say, hang on please, Lorna. They would say that they have put in place a company called We Are Digital to help people who want to access the scheme. And we would say that, We Are Digital and not really dealing with the claimants in a culturally appropriate way. And we've had feedback from claimants that they're not happy with the way that they've been dealt with by We Are Digital. So,
sorry, Anthony, is We Are Digital another interface that you've got to use via emails, or is this people you can actually talk to?
Supposedly.
They took over from CA.
They took over from the Citizens Advice Bureau to offer the support and advice for people to either rectify their status or complete their applications for compensation. And they are there to do what we are doing, but they have been, they won the tender from the Home Office, so they're being paid substantially to carry out this service. But people are still coming to us. People have been to them. We went for the tender too. We didn't win it. They didn't give it to us.
Did Patricia experience We Are Digital?
Sorry?
Did Patricia experience We Are Digital?
No.
But she experienced the Citizens Advice. So before them, it was Citizens Advice who the government were paying to support people. And many, Patricia and others went to the Citizens Advice and then came to us because it's not working.
Yes, We Are Digital is about compensation. They don't deal with people who are trying to access the Windrush scheme like Patricia. Okay. So that's the distinction. On the other side, Otis, is that the comment on the petition about the compensation scheme, you have to be precise in terms of what you're asking for. Now, a lot of people have been asking for, the compensation scheme to be put with an independent body. I'm not sure about that because I don't know what the independent body would be. I don't know if they'd be any better than the Home Office. The worry that I have with that kind of suggestion is that you create another layer of bureaucracy and you create further delays, because a lot of these decisions are to do with immigration and nationality, and only the Home Office in law has the power to do that. Now, unless you're going to go and change a whole lot of laws in order to give another agency the right to do that, it's not really worth doing it. And if you're going to change the law, I say change it the way that we're suggesting, and then you can get the throughput and the kind of relief that you would get in the way we're saying it. The alternative, I say, is to break up the Home Office. Now, if they were calling for the breakup of the Home Office, I'd happily put my hand up, because you could then have, a Windrush department that gets a new management team, has a different ministerial oversight, and so therefore will be able to access all the data that they would need in terms of immigration and nationality, but be able to process the applications in a more effective way, as a separate department from the Home Office. So not move it to another department, but break up the Home Office. So, and maybe there are other departments in the Home Office that would function much better if they had better ministerial oversight. Because it's so big, I don't think ministers are getting all the information from the officials that they need to have, to run that, department as effectively as they should. It's just too big and it's failing.
And there's been the Windrush Lessons Learned review that was written by Wendy Williams. It's really, really fantastic review of the Windrush scheme and how the Home Office have been dealing with it. And there are 31 recommendations, something like that, for the Home Office to look into. So it would be good for people to be aware of that review and the things that Wendy Williams.
So I agree in sentiment with the petition, but with me, as Lorna complains all the time, I get too technical and legalistic. But unless you think these things through carefully, you can end up with a whole load of other problems that you didn't think about in the first place, and that's why I'm the way I am.
Okay. Just in relation to just while with regard to Patricia and some of the things that she said, because again time's running very, very quickly. Was there anything that she touched on? Because she said a lot, and she said a lot about what she'd gone through, people she's been in contact with. Is there anything that you feel needs to be emphasized on, that could be a benefit to other people who may be in her position, that maybe needed more time to discuss with her, or for her to enlighten?
It's important. I'll let Anthony Leone add to this, but what's important from it for me, I get really emotional when Patricia talks. Oh my God. But it's that so many of our people do go out of the country to look after their loved ones. And that's what Patricia did. And that is part of who we are as a people. We care for our elders, we care for our people in need, and if it's in the countries where we were born or our parents were born, then it's just part of us to go back to that country and look after who it is that needs looking after. And that is what's happened to so many of our clients, in that they've gone to a funeral, they've gone to help a parent that's ailing and that doesn't have long to live, and then they've found themselves at border control, being refused entry.
Okay.
So they want to come forward if they're in that position, whether they're in another country or not. They should seek out help in that country or get in touch with someone here in the UK or the High Commission here in the UK just to seek help, really.
Are they actually helpful people in other countries where these
Um,
people are?
well, I know that in Jamaica, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade is tasked with assisting people, and there's some information there. So, yeah.
Okay. And just with regard, again, mindful of time, I know one area that we wanted to touch
Anthony,
on.
one second. The thing that I would like to bring out about what Patricia said was the thing about children.
Okay.
And I think people who may be of the older generation may feel that, you know, they've lived their lives and okay, they haven't got the documentation, but it hasn't really bothered them, and they're in a position now where they don't think it's ever going to bother them. But it's the generations that are coming after them that can be also affected. So Patricia talked about her children not being able to get into university. For me, that was a big issue. And, you know, Lorna has mentioned what happened to Sakina and her daughter. So just to re-emphasize what's going on there is that the previously, if you were born in the UK, you could acquire British citizenship. But, you know, after the 81 Act, even though you're born here, your parents need to have had the British status for you to get that status. And so what happened with Sakina was that her mother had come from St. Vincent in the 60s. And then in 1979, St. Vincent got its independence. And all the Caribbean islands, when they get independence, Britain passes an Independence Act. And Section 2.2 of those Independence Act, you can look at it for Barbados, you can look at it for Jamaica, you can look at it for Trinidad. They all revoke your citizenship of the United Kingdom and colonies. So Patricia's citizenship would have been revoked. Sakina's mother citizenship was revoked in 1979, about 18 years after she'd been here. And so she wouldn't have known anything growing up about it. Her mother would have just grown up here thinking that she was British. Had Sakina was born after 1983. So when she was born, she wasn't automatically British. Sakina then has her daughter. Her daughter's 12, wants to go on a school trip, and then is shocked and told, you're not British. You're all not British. So the future generations is a big issue. And there's a lot of people going around still not realizing how serious this is for them. We hear stories in the media about twins being deported because they've grown up in care and the care people haven't registered them or anything. Born here, grown up here. And, you know, it's so bizarre. One twin is going to be deported to one Caribbean island, and another twin is going to be deported to another because of, you know, the different parents that they had. So crazy things like that are happening. You heard about the actor, I think is it from EastEnders or I think it was an EastEnders, Ace Rule. He is facing deportation. So I'm saying it's happening right now. And these are people who were born here or grew up here. So people need to understand that, yes, you might have lived your life, but what about the future generations? What about your grandchildren? What about your great-grandchildren? They're going to get caught up in stuff. And, you know, the law is that if you get sentenced for more than a year, so it doesn't have to be much, it could be a driving offense, you can be deported automatically. Not can be, you must be. That's what the law says. So if you get sentenced for an offense that's more than a year, then you are automatically liable for deportation.
And Anthony, who's that applying to when you say that about the you know, the good character? Who are you applying that to when you say that?
That applies to anybody who's not born, who's not British. So if you haven't had your British status confirmed, by your parents or by your carers, then if you come before the law and they find that you haven't got that British status, you will be put on one of these planes that we keep hearing about and be deported. And you'll hear Priti Patel stand up in Parliament and say, well, we're getting rid of these foreign criminals, even though you were born here or came as a child.
And I think the rest of society then believes that, well, oh, if they're being deported back to Jamaica, they must be criminals. They must have done something. And that's what a lot of people end up sitting back and believing.
Even our own people in our own Jamaican community, they will say, okay, well, if they can't obey the law, they must go. And they don't understand that the very organization that is putting them on this plane isn't obeying the law. You know, the Home Office is not obeying the law. The Home Office has held its hands up to say that what we've been doing is illegal. But you hear people still saying, oh, you know, the Home Office must be doing the right thing. It's irrational, but that's what people do. They don't pay attention to the detail. They don't get technical.
Okay. Can I just then, we've got all that going on, yeah? All that what you just talked about, all that you've shared, all the work that you're doing, yet people are still being encouraged to apply for compensation, okay? So just in the time that we have left, which is literally 15 minutes, yeah? Why are people still being encouraged to apply for compensation if there's still so much confusion going on? Should people be applying for compensation, and how is the best way for them to do that?
I'm just going to say one thing briefly. They definitely need to be applying. The people that are applying, and when lots of people have heard the term hostile environment, and does everybody know what that means? It means that the government created an environment in this country that would make it hostile, would make it difficult, challenging for you to live freely and happily whilst they believed you didn't belong here. So that hostile environment means that you might have a job, Otis, Anthony, and then you go to work tomorrow, Monday morning, and they say, can you bring your passport in, please? And you think, what? What for? You've never asked for a passport before. Well, I need to see your passport, and that's your employer. Or you go to hospital for an operation, and they might say, can you bring your passport in, please? And thinking, can you just make me get well? I'm bleeding here. Bring your passport in. So the hostile environment is because employers, NHS, where else? Anthony Leone can add to the others, became
bank account,
housing,
driver's license, everything.
Driver's license, DVLA. They became border control. So the government said to them, if you don't ask for the passports of your workers or of your people coming to get healed at the NHS or coming for a new house at the housing department, if you don't get their passport and check that they are British, then you will be fined. I think it was something like £10,000. And they were very, very harsh with the employers, because many employers have spoken to us and said they were scared not to do it. They didn't want to do it. So that's what the hostile environment was, and still is, actually. I'll let Leonie and Anthony continue.
So yeah, it would say, they would say, the Home Office would say that the hostile, the policy was to make the environment hostile for illegal immigrants, so they would self-deport, so they couldn't live here. So they take away all the rights that they would have. But unfortunately, the Windrush generation got caught up into that hostility. And like my colleague said, when the Home Office announced that they would be charging each employer £10,000 for every illegal immigrant that they caught working with an employer, the Home Office, what they didn't do as due diligence was to ensure that employers know how to check whether someone has the right to work in the country. So, for example, we know that you don't have to have a British passport to work, to be able to work. There are people who are legally in the country, who are on visas, students, all sorts of different people who are allowed to work in the country, but because the employers were scared because they were threatened with £10,000 fines if they were caught, they from what I've heard from employers, what they've just decided that if someone can show me that a British passport, it means that they're allowed to work. So that's what they went for, basically. Just go. They just said, show me a passport. So obviously, people, the Windrush generation, didn't have a British passport because they didn't get their status confirmed by having a legal proof. And they didn't obviously not have the passport to show, so that's why most of them lost their jobs. But it didn't stop there. I mean, a lot of they put obligations on landlords as well. So landlords now has to do certain checks if they want to rent their properties to anyone. Right now, landlords, there's an obligation on landlords to check to make sure that they're not illegal immigrants. How do a landlord check that someone is not illegally in this country? So and they can be fined as well. So that's the hostility, that's the environment that we talked about. It's harsh. You can't open a bank account. Bank will have to check that you are legal in this country. You can't, and then the NHS. And as we know that the Windrush generation built the NHS. And they were asked to prove, when many of them were asked to prove their legal status, were asked for British passport, like what the employers were doing, just asking for British passport, weren't able to do that, so they were denied treatment, healthcare. So that's.
And therefore, that's stopping people coming forward, isn't it, Leona? That's one of it. All of those reasons are why people are fearful to come forward, because.
I've spoken to one client. I won't name the person, and I won't say anything that will identify them. But this individual was a school teacher, and when she was asked to prove her legal status, and she couldn't prove it, basically. And because when you get sacked from your job as a teacher, they escort you off the premises. So the security would escort you off the premises, and that terrified her. She didn't want to be escorted off, and she actually resigned. She actually resigned her position because she didn't want to go through all that and to see the students that she was teaching, the children that she was teaching, to see her get escorted off the premises. So she went on sick, and then she resigned her position.
Goodness.
Now, in terms of compensation, the Home Office would say, well, you actually resigned. You can't prove that you were sacked and stuff like that. So, but it's because of the hostility of the environment, what was set up by the government, why she had to give up her job.
One of the things that people haven't questioned is how many people have decided to self-deport because of the hostile environment. I can't for 1 second think of anybody who has been, who has come from a territory where, they're being bombed or shot at, or raped, or crazy violence is going on, makes it to the shores of Britain, and then because they can't have a bank account, they decide to self-deport themselves. So all that's happening is that the government is making it hard for people in certain situations, and there's no real tangible outcomes from it, evidence from it to say that this is what it's achieving. So for me, the whole hostile environment thing is creating a detriment for people who are British. You can't show any reasons why it should be kept. It should be scrapped, and we should just get back to what I call a peaceful environment. My other point is that one of the things that
on the compensation, Anthony. Did you say then that should be scrapped?
No, I'm saying that people should claim the compensation. I'm saying that on top of the compensation, there should be reparations for the discrimination that's taken place.
So the process of claiming the compensation, because I'm aware also we're doing this today, it's in combination with yourself, WD Legal, and also with T.A.P. And I know T.A.P are also encouraging people to also get in touch with them should they want to get support in applying for the compensation. So
Yes.
what is the best way to do that? And we've got 10 minutes left. So I don't know if well, you can say, because you've been doing it for a longer period of time, Windrush WD Legal. So, Otis, would you just say, with regard to yourselves and the compensation, how people can get that support from TAP?
Yeah, with regards to TAP, I think if they have a network of young people, it'd be great if the young people could use their PESTA power to talk to their parents and grandparents to find out what their status is. I think that's the best way for TAP to deal with it, to get the young people to start asking the questions. And then, then we can look at the answers that are given and make sure those young people aren't at risk if they get into trouble, that they're going to face a massive impact, like being deported from their friends and families, because that's what they risk if they don't check their status. Yeah. So that's the first thing.
But then it's back to what Lorna was saying, innit? A lot of people might not even know what the terminology definition is for status. So it's how the young people are wording it to the grandparents as well.
Yeah, so we can provide you, we can sit down and we can work out some flyers, some information to give to young people to take to their parents. That's not an issue. But
just as an information point for TAP and Otis, what is the situation for people in contacting yourselves in relation to the compensation?
Well, the situation is we will go through.
No. I'm asking Otis because they are actually have an advert out at the moment on the radio saying that you're providing support in that area. Yeah.
So what it is our campaign is raising awareness, but on the website link that we're giving, which is tapproject.co.uk/Windrush, we actually have links to the Windrush Defenders Legal as a referral point, and also the Preston Windrush team as well. So depending on the location where the people are, we put their information on the website directly, so people can go directly to these organizations to get the assistance. Our aim of the project is just to raise awareness of the campaign and then signpost to. Yeah,
that's excellent. And you will have Liverpool to add to that now, because we have a Liverpool Windrush Generation and Descendants team that's just been established in Liverpool on the 20th. So going forward, we now have 3 cities in the Northwest where we have a team set up. So the Northwest is being well served. And we also have the Windrush National Organisation. So any part of the country you care to find people, we can get help to them. So yeah, you've got a good structure there if you're referring them through.
Yeah. Could you just repeat them 3 places, Anthony, please?
So there's Preston, Windrush Generations and Descendants UK. There's Liverpool, Windrush Generations and Descendants. There's Windrush Defenders Legal, CIC. So we're the 3 in the Northwest that are dealing with the Windrush issue. And then we are plugged into national networks, the Windrush National Organisation. So through us, we can reach any part of the UK and any part of the world, because we have contacts around the world as well.
Yeah.
Or we
I was just going to say it's global. I was also just going to mention that because of what happened with the hostile environment and the work that we're doing now, there are over 30 organisations like ours that formed across the country because of how difficult it is to fill out this application form, which the Home Office said was simple enough to just do at home yourself. So there are over 30 organisations like ours, and we're tapped into all of them.
So can I just say as well, Anthony, one of the things that I do when I speak to the elder generation, and some of the young people might want to use this because they like their Bibles, our older generation. And I found that when I was talking to some at a group, I had grown up with many of those people in church. So I was able to go to Acts 22, verse 25, and give them the story of St. Paul when Paul was going to be flogged. And I'll just read it out. He just said, he said to them, it says, as they stretched him out to flog him, Paul said to the centurion standing there, "Is it legal for you to flog a Roman citizen who hasn't even been found guilty. So the older generation will be able to relate to that straight away, because they know that had Paul not been a Roman citizen, he would have just been beaten because he was undocumented. And that's what's going to happen to their children and grandchildren, because if they don't get documented, when they come and face the centurion, they can't say, is it lawful, to flog someone who's a British citizen, because they won't be a British citizen because their parents and grandparents never registered them. So this is what we're saying that the young people need to do, to go to their older generation and say, have you read Acts 22:25? Have you dealt with the situation? And also what we're doing as well, I should mention, on the 1st of August, we're going to join with the reparations group that are talking about how we repair ourselves as a community, as well as we're putting in for this Windrush Act. So we want people to be in touch with us about getting on a coach, going to London, and really parleying with all the people that I've just talked about, all the groups from around the country. We're going to be meeting up on the 1st of August this year. That's Emancipation Day, for those who don't know.
Can you send me that information as well, so I can share amongst my network?
Yeah, I will do. Once we've printed the file, we only decided this yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of information because they do the Reparations Day, the Mangamese Emancipation Day every year, 1st of August. So there will be a lot coming out about that.
I'll share the flyer with you.
Yeah.
Oh no, I meant in regards to the transportation.
Yeah. We're getting that together. That should be with us this week. But the information about the day, there's a flyer about that.
Yeah. Another thing I'd say is that so the Windrush compensation scheme is to compensate people who have suffered any form of discrimination as a result of the scandal. So and for descendants. So if you have suffered directly because of the scandal, you need to seek help and to claim your compensation if you can. If you find that you can't fill out the form by yourself, or the information that is provided is not straightforward, that you should seek some sort of assistance, maybe ourselves that you come to, or you go elsewhere where there's help, but don't not claim. You should claim for the to be compensated for the injustices that you've suffered. If you've suffered directly, or if you've suffered indirectly because the member of your family have suffered and it's filtered down through to you, or even if your family member have died, you can do it as a for someone who is deceased. So please do look into it, and don't not leave it alone. Just don't not claim. We want you to claim the compensation. It is hard to actually get the claim put through, but we are here to help as well. So I just want to encourage people to claim the compensation. It's meant to put you back into the position that you would have been in if you haven't suffered this injustice.
Yeah. Can I just say as well, we have had people who have been helped and who have received compensation.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a quick question. Can you define suffered and who can claim, please?
Do you have to do that, Anthony? You do that. I'll let Anthony do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to.
Do it in 1 minute.
Wait. Yeah, I wouldn't want to define it because, some people might say, oh, well, that's not me. We want people to just come forward and speak to us, and then we will find out from them, what has happened, and we will look at the guidance and then be able to help them. Try and define it. There's so many different ways. There's so many different ways that you can have been affected. I mean, in the claim form there are 12 heads of loss. So there's like immigration fees, there's banking, there's impact on family life, there's health, there's homelessness, there's a whole range of them, and and there's also discretion. So it's not a good idea to start saying, oh well, these are the lists, because it varies depending on the circumstances that people have been in. The important thing is to make sure that you've got your documentation in place. If you've suffered any kind of effects or problems, then come forward and tell us what they are, and we'll see how we can deal with it.
So as long as you've stopped something,
Sorry.
yeah, that's fine. It's.
Can I just add quickly to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
All I wanted to say, because I know it's going to end, this is going to end now, is that when Anthony's written the judicial review and his statement, I'd love people to get a bit more of an understanding of why we're doing that, and also to understand why we're calling for reparations. It's really something that we all need to know about. Everybody should be talking about this. Everybody needs to be discussing Windrush with their families and with their friends and colleagues at work. This topic needs to be raised up. It's really, really important. It's also important to understand that the people that are affected, they are doing a lot of the talking. They are out there in the media. They are fighting, marching, and dying, and they are really, really doing most of the work to raise awareness around Windrush, and that's not okay. These people are suffering trauma, real serious trauma that they have been through. They are not over it yet. We are getting no support to help people's well-being, and the trauma that we have to listen to day in, day out. We have asked the Home Office repeatedly to look into ways that we can address the well-being part, address the trauma that people are reliving when they are having to relive their stories to us, talk to us from the day they were born. What age did you come to the UK? They've got to tell that whole story to us so many times so that we can get the right information on their claim form. So the well-being side, the help to help people like Patricia and her daughters, for what nobody's helping them with their well-being and what's really going on for them with their mental health and how that's affected them. There's nobody asking that question. We're asking it. Other organisations like ours across the country are asking it, but there's nobody from the government that are coming forward and saying, actually, there's a big, well-being and mental health is big in society. Everybody's discussing it at the moment, but nobody wants to address it in relation to the people we're speaking to who are affected by Windrush, and their well-being is at risk. Really, really is. One of the reasons why Professor Gus John, Gus has written several pieces and Gus has spoken to us several times. He is so against celebrating and getting this Windrush Day that we've been given from the government. He sees it as a red herring. He sees it as a smokescreen. He sees it as them seeing that all we're good for is to jump up and down and dance and have a party around something that's abhorrent, disgusting, despicable. And so that's why Gus is so against, partying for Windrush Day, and he speaks to us about it really often, and we see where he's coming from, and he works tirelessly to raise these issues as well. So
yeah. And Anthony, just one quick point with myself. I mean, you've captioned me as a solicitor. I'm a law graduate. I've paused the legal practice training while we get Windrush done. So if you could just clarify that.
I had that on from time. In our community, Anthony, we take on many names. It doesn't really matter what you are. I could just be calling you King, Ambassador.
I was saying that to the team yesterday. I was saying that to the team yesterday because they put me in the Washington Post, not dropping any names, as an attorney at law. And somebody rang me up and said, I didn't know you was an attorney. I says, listen, people have called me worse things. I'm not going to go and complain. Don't call me that.
I remember a long time when there was a person who was on the radio and was calling themselves Reverend. I mean, people were complaining, saying you can't use that term, but we give people terms. You're king, you're queen,
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer now.
What answer to that name?
ITV said I'm a lawyer, so I'm a lawyer.
Well, I did as well.
Come and pay me and I'll represent you.
Listen, just some final words. Final words from you all then in relation to the conversation that we've had today. What you want to leave people with let's. I'll start with Otis actually.
Okay, yeah, I just want to thank those. Thank you lot for participating in today's session. Wouldn't have been possible without you. Thank you, Anthony, for hosting, and thank you everyone who's locked in and listened. And I just want to say, if you feel you know someone or yourself, if you think you may be eligible, then don't remain quiet. Like, go through the proceedings, get in touch with someone in the team, and push forward, as you should be getting what you're entitled to. So don't remain silent.
Excellent. Lorna?
I think I've said all I want to say. I just want people to understand that this scheme can affect you. Don't think it's just, the old people, the old people from the Caribbean, the old people from Nigeria, the old people from Kenya. No, it can affect you. And I really, really want people just to start talking about it, start asking questions, and let's get the law changed so that our children and grandchildren don't have to go through this rubbish. It's wrong. Really, really, really wrong what's happening, and we need to, if we don't do anything about it, it's going to continue.
Excellent, thank you. Leonie?
Yeah, everyone's, I think I've said what I wanted to say already as well, Tony. And what Otis said, I'd echo that. So if you feel like you've been affected, or you know someone has been affected, that you should really seek help. We try our best to help as many people as we can with the time that we've got. So we'll do our best in whatever way. We don't charge people. We don't, we're doing it voluntarily, and we will do our best endeavor to help you or signpost you to the right people if we're not able to assist you with what you present with. So I thank you as well, Tony, for Notice for inviting me to come on this. We have to keep the conversation going. We have to keep the awareness going. We can't allow the government to sweep this underneath the carpet. And like Lana said, it affects a lot more people than that we realize, and it affects people who don't even realize that they've been affected. So we've got to keep the conversation going, and we've got to continue to talk about it. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Leonie. Anthony?
I just want to say that if we can get a Windrush Act, it'll strengthen our hands to build a better future. I think the community cohesion has been damaged. We've been subjected to a lot of abuse, and there's a lot of work to be done. We created a Windrush pledge for the 70th anniversary of the arrival of MV Empire Windrush in 1948, and that was held at Manchester Cathedral on the 31st of October 2018. And I'd just like to read that pledge and hope that people be able to share that and make that pledge themselves. So it says, I promise to stand up for justice, peace, and unity for the Windrush generation and their descendants, to work diligently and creatively, to think generously and honestly, so that we may, under God, increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play our part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race, forever free on the earth, one people, forever conscious in the light.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for the great work that you're doing.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Anthony, that I like this song, this Nubian Jack song. I like it. I heard it on the show the other day when you had, can't remember
Anthony was on,
Dr. Jack.
Glenda was on, Julia was on, and Dr. Jack.
It was a slow starter, but once it got going.
Yeah. It does grow on you.
Yeah.
It does grow on you. So, okay, guys, thank you all very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Anthony.
And
keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Get the information
Thanks,
out.
guys.
All right, you
Thank
take
you,
care.
Otis.
Okay,
See
bless
you
you.
soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Pat.
Thanks, Otis.
Here we go. And that's it. And that was Windrush Day celebration. Not celebration, but Windrush Day information. Thank you to all the guys for taking part, and thank you for also tuning in. I want to see if I can rewind that track for you, which is called I Have a Song. And it is to commemorate the work that was done by the Windrush generation, the nurses that took the time to come over here and work. So here we go. I have a song.
Big up our massive our crew. Cause in the end, love is
Listen.
sometimes I need so long I've been searching. Something that I'm probably not meant to find. No matter how hard it gets, no matter when the tears fall, nothing can stop us from trying. Oh, look at me. What do you see? Do you understand my story? All I want is someone else to see. If you took the time, I have a song. See me come here, villain. See me favor alien. Make me walk a million miles to be free. Just to make a living and stop the killing and spread a little loving, cause love is all winning at the end song. Cause love come, cause love united we stand and divided we fall. And when you see at the time of this stand tall, now you don't want to answer the call. When you look at me, what do you see? Do you understand my story? All I want is love, someone else to see. If you took the time, I have a song. When you look at me, what do you see? Do you understand my story? All I want is love, someone else to see. If you took the time, have a song. What's this? Love is all we need. Love is all we need in the end.
Thank you and goodbye.